live long and prosper. So in this video series, I'm going to be talking through the social justice elements of every episode of the original series of Star Trek. The thing that inspired this project was actually a Fox News article which argued that Star Trek has in some way betrayed its traditional commitment to sort of political neutrality or middle ground by embracing progressive politics. In this series, we're going to see that Star Trek has always embraced progressive politics, and it's always been aspirational for social justice in various senses. I am taking a broad perspective on social justice here, so that may include multiple different types of social justice, whether that's racial, whether that's economic, whether that's religious, whether that's abilities, gender and sexuality, anything broadly considered. I will go through every episode. Some of the episodes I will interview fellow Trekkies and talk with them about it. And then below, in the descriptions, I will give you additional information about the episodes, particularly their original air date, who wrote the screenplay, and who directed that episode. I also want to dedicate this series to my dad, Michael Allen Zapkin. He was an OG Trekkie from back in the day, and it was watching the original series with him that I came to love Star Trek. In this video, we're going to talk about the episode The Corbomite Maneuver. Now, to be very honest, this is the episode so far that lends itself least to a social justice reading. The Corbomite Maneuver is not necessarily one of the greatest episodes in the glorious history of Star Trek, the original series. It's relatively more straightforward as a sci-fi storyline. Basically what happens is the Enterprise is going out further than anybody has ever gone before. They're mapping this star section that nobody from their portion of the galaxy has ever been out to, etc., etc. When they're stopped by a glowing space Rubik's Cube, essentially. It's a cube that rotates. It stays in front of them. They try and back away from it, and it keeps coming at them, etc., etc. And so ultimately, they end up having to destroy this cube. They go back with the intention of sort of finding out who sent out the cube, etc., etc., since their mission is to boldly go where no man has gone before, to explore strange new worlds, etc., etc. When they get there, they're met by Balok, commander of the Vesperian. That doesn't sound exactly right, but it's relatively right. So anyway, Balok is there, and he basically says, hey, you guys fucking toasted my space buoy with your phasers, so now I'm gonna scan your ship, and then I'm gonna destroy you. You have 10 Earth time periods known as minutes to prepare with whatever deity or deities you have. So basically, Balok gives them 10 minutes, then he's going to wreck the ship, etc., etc. The Enterprise can't do anything about this. They're vastly less powerful than Balok's ship. They react in different ways. Sulu gets really into doing a countdown on the 10 minutes. Spock basically is like, well, there's no logical way out of this, so we're fucked. Mr. Bailey, who's the helmsman, who if I'm honest, I'm glad he never shows up again in the series. He basically just, like, loses it. At some point, he's like, "You're all dying! How can you just be like machines? We've got to do something!" And McCoy takes him away to go to his quarters and whatnot. Then later, Bailey shows back up, and he's like, "Hey, sorry, I fucking lost my shit in this combat situation, but can I come back? I know I've only been gone for like 90 seconds, but I feel like I've really pulled myself together." At which point Kirk is like, "Yeah, that's great. Happy to have you back." Incidentally, McCoy is concerned that Kirk has promoted Bailey too fast and pushed him beyond his abilities, because Kirk sees in Bailey the same potential that Kirk had 11 years earlier. So apparently Kirk is 11 years older than Bailey. I think William Shatner was 31 in 1966. I think. Maybe 30. Somewhere around there. So Bailey's like 20 or so. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Not the point. Finally, in like 3 minutes to go, Kirk is like, "Aha, I've realized what this is." Spock had basically earlier said, "Checkmate." And Kirk's like, I figured it out. Not chess, poker. And so Kirk tells Balok, into the hull of every starship is incorporated Corbomite, which, according to Kirk, is both a substance and a device that, whenever an Earth ship is attacked, it reflects the attack back on the attacker, thus destroying them. And since the institution of Corbomite in Earth spaceships, no attacking enemy vessel has ever survived an attack against an Earth ship. Balok basically falls for this. He buys the bluff. And so Balok separates his little command module off from the rest of the bigger ship, this giant ship, which just pieces out to do whatever it's going to do. And Balok's command ship is like, "All right, I'm going to tow the Enterprise to a planet with a habitable environment for you, where you will be interned, and then we will destroy your ship." They're going along. The Enterprise, and at some point, Balok's ship lowers its power output. It pulls out a little bit ahead from the Enterprise, and so the Enterprise starts trying to break away. They succeed at this. They think that they have damaged Balok's ship because his power output is now at a minimum. He sends out a very weak distress signal, basically saying his ship has been destroyed, his life support systems are failing, etc., etc. And so Kirk turns the Enterprise around and heads back over to the command ship, at which point, because basically he's going to go and rescue Balok, because they always had intended to be peaceful, even though they blasted the space buoy for emitting radiation that was going to kill them. And so Kirk, McCoy, Kirk, McCoy, and Bailey beam over to Balok's ship, where they meet Balok, who is not the sort of green alien, scary dude, scary for 66 maybe, little green alien dude that they thought he was. He's actually an extremely young Clint Howard. But Balok is the commander. He runs the entire ship from his little chair where he hangs out and drinks Tranya. We'll talk about Tranya again in just a bit. And basically he's like, well, I I really just wanted to test you and see if you would attempt to destroy a weakened opponent, or if you actually were peaceful and would attempt to render assistance. Also, I'd really love it, since I'm here by myself, if somebody from your ship could hang out and, just chat with me and we'll exchange knowledge and whatnot. And Bailey's like, I want to do that. Even though I totally cracked under pressure, and Kirk's like, great, Mr. Bailey. And actually, I say great too, because we now never need to deal with you again in the show. Anyway, so there's there's not that much in this that really lends itself to much of a discussion of social justice. I think the main thing in terms of social justice issues is about setting unrealistic expectations, or setting arbitrary expectations. And this plays out in two different ways, in or around the episode. The one more important one is the one within the episode itself relates to Bailey, because McCoy does raise a couple of concerns with Kirk that Bailey is experiencing extreme stress. He's not at maximum performance. So McCoy is concerned about Bailey's ability to handle all of the responsibility that Kirk has put on him. Kirk, for his part, more or less dismisses these concerns. And then when Bailey does crack, at actually a moment where, it could have been detrimental, because Bailey is the navigator and he also is the weapons officer. So he is the one who has to fire the phasers or the photon torpedoes or whatever it is. Not having him at optimum performance is a danger to the entire ship. And so when Kirk sort of just dismisses McCoy's concerns about Bailey's ability to handle this stress, that's really problematic. The other element of unreasonable expectations and arbitrary expectations actually comes from, this is information that's outside the show. This was one of Clint Howard's first acting parts. He was a kid. And his dad, Clint Howard and Ron Howard, their brothers, their parents were also actors. Clint's dad, well, Clint and Ron's dad, but for the purposes of this story, Ron's not that important. Clint's dad came with him to film the episode, and for Tranya, which is the drink that Balok drinks and offers to Kirk, McCoy, and Bailey, the props people had chosen grapefruit juice. That's what it was. It was just regular grapefruit juice. And Clint Howard apparently hates, or hated at the time, grapefruit juice. He did not like it. And he asked his dad if they could ask the props people to use something other than grapefruit juice. And his dad was basically like, no, you're an actor. You're going to drink it and you're going to pretend that you like it. That's what being an actor means. And okay, I get it that there's some value of persevering through things that you don't like doing, or things that are difficult, whatever it is. But if it's just a question of you're going to arbitrarily suffer in a way that you don't have to, that's, I think, a different quality of thing. If it was they went to a lot of trouble to get, if they had to grow the grapefruits themselves in Florida and then carry them by hand to wherever they were filming and hand squeeze the grapefruit juice because it was crucial that Tranya looked like grapefruit juice, that would be one thing. But, like, they could have fucking gone out and gotten, like, some fruit punch or some orange juice or lemonade or something else. It didn't matter that it was grapefruit juice. It was completely unimportant for the purposes of the episode. But Clint's dad apparently made him drink this grapefruit juice because that was what the props people had arbitrarily chosen. Because that's what actors do, or something like this. So, again, I think that's a thing that's really important in terms of how we interact with other people, is what sorts of expectations we set and what standards we hold them to and why.